Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast, But First Football. But first and always first, football. I don't know why I had to add that second one in. um, I am Kim Beal, the self-proclaimed first lady of football fandom and fashion, and here with my good friend Vaughn Parker, our NFL football phenom, our expert in all things NFL football and many other subjects. So we are here every week to discuss football and fashion and food and philanthropy and fun and lots of F words. But today, first, before we start, I'm going to save the Buck stuff until the frenzy because, but I did want to just say last week, I had shared my frustration of the Steelers starting Russell Wilson rather than Justin Fields. And I would like to just make a public announcement that I was wrong. And you said you trusted Mike Tomlin, that he's a great coach, which I knew. And you were right. And it really worked out for them. So I just wanted to go on record saying, I was wrong to doubt Mike Tomlin.
Well, but like with anything NFL, super small sample size. You got to wait. You got to wait. Let's see 4 weeks from now, a month from now, are we still singing Russell's praises, right? I mean, he's had a rough 2 years.
Yes. But they scored 37 points. They haven't scored that many points in years. So that did say something. And now I don't even remember who they were playing, but it wasn't a horrible team. Who was it?
Oh, boy. I don't remember.
I don't remember. It's already disappeared from our memories.
Oh, it was the Jets.
Oh, yes, of course. The hapless Jets.
It was the Jets, yes.
The hapless Jets. Anyway, so I just wanted to put that out there that Mike Tomlin, you are indeed worth every penny that you make. As he said, that's why he's paid the big bucks or something to that effect. I would agree, and well done. So as always, if you are new to our podcast, we start our time with our football fundamental segment, which is when Vaughn shares with us things that we may or may not know about the NFL, what it's like to play, what it's like to have life after the NFL, and all the things that we really want to know. And this week, for our fundamental segment, we will be discussing the equipment room.
Yes.
Correct? And perhaps some policies and procedures.
Yeah, exactly.
So take it away, Vaughn.
And so this was inspired by my good friend from SC, Courtney Chandler. And she kind of phrased it as, is there just like a magical closet you go in and it's just like endless? And to be quite honest, if you go into an NFL equipment room, it might feel that way. Like it's a magical closet because there's just rows and rows of everything you can imagine, right? T-shirts but to be honest, the equipment guys are so hardworking because think about their job, right? It's not just outfitting guys before the season, but on travel weeks where you got to take that whole show on the road. You got to trust that the guys are going to get their bags packed, get them to you. But then you have to be prepared on Sundays for any possibility in terms of equipment breakdown, some obscure screw on a helmet that maybe only one or two guys on the team wear. You have to have the extra screws for that. You have to plan ahead, and it's a logistics nightmare. And I'm just glad I never had to really deal with it from that.
Can I ask you a question about those guys?
Sure.
First of all, how many are there, do you think, usually? And secondly, how much do these guys make? What's your guess?
Oh, geez. I know sometimes some of these, like Chris Smith at the Chargers, who, Sid Brooks was our head guy. Chris was, or maybe I can't tell you who was number two. Our equipment room was excellent. They were all excellent, but Chris Smith is the head guy now. And if I'm not mistaken, he was maybe like a ball boy at some point, and then just like he's been there his lifetime. So, and I know he has a family, so they make enough where I think they can raise a family, live in LA, right? And I'm sure it
Yeah.
depends on where you're at. I can't
Yeah.
really speak to what they make, but they're invaluable, and that's those are some of the guys that you really want to become friends with, and show them a lot of respect because they really do take care of the players so very well. Um, one of the things she wanted to know was like what's provided, and basically anything you need is provided. Now, the caveat to that is when guys come from other teams, oftentimes they'll bring their own equipment because they're such guys are so particular about that type of thing and want their
Yeah.
thing custom to them. And so, whether they, again, if you're in good with your equipment, guys are probably not going to charge you to take your stuff. But maybe there's some nominal charge for which isn't probably a small price to pay to bring your pads that make you comfortable, bring your helmet that makes you comfortable, bring your whatever that makes you comfortable. But yeah, the team pretty much provides everything that you need. And there's a saying that, and I want to say maybe Deion Sanders gets credit for starting it, but I know it's ubiquitous throughout the NFL and it's trickled down to college. I knew about it when I was in college, but the saying is look good, you look good, you feel good, you play good, you get paid good, right? Grammatically not quite right, but that you get the sense of it.
Yeah. Makes
So
sense.
and so you see some of the like I think I talked a couple weeks about like receivers, cornerbacks are so fastidious about their uniforms,
Yeah. Yeah.
but everyone to a certain degree is pretty particular about the customization of their uniform, and that's the other thing that they'll do. They'll get you fitted, you'll put everything on, kind of a trying everything on before you go to game day, and hey, I want you to cut it here, and then they don't want guys performing surgery on their own jerseys looking a mess. And so you tell the equipment guys, okay, we'll cut it here, but then we'll sew it so it looks good, right? So it's customized and you nip and tuck, but it's not like we're in. Whereas on the college level, sometimes guys will kind of do their own thing. So
Yeah.
something as silly as this. We talked a few weeks ago about the uniform police, and there's typically a former player out there on game day going through it pregame. He'll make his notes. He'll contact each player. Hey, pull your socks up. Do this, that, the other thing. Well, if you look at a college game on a Saturday, and the reason for that is the NFL wants uniform look, everyone to look the same, and that's probably goes deeper than you might imagine. Yeah, they want everyone to look good and look the same, but it's also because they want the fans to remember and recognize the uniforms and the logos more than the players. That's part of it
Right.
too, but that's a
Right.
deep
Yeah.
discussion for another day. But if you look at a football game on a Saturday, you'll see some guys have black socks, some guys have white socks, some guys have high socks, some guys have low socks. The NFL doesn't want any of that, right?
Right.
So some of the customizations you will see, those socks are pretty stretchy. So for instance, we had a two-tone sock. The bottom half was white, the upper half was blue, like above the ankle and the calf. Well, some guys will stretch that all the way up to their knee where you barely see any blue if at all, but technically he's wearing the uniform, right? So there's not
Yeah.
much you can do in terms of finding that guy or whatever. But guys are really particular about what they want, and it's the equipment guys who take care of all of that. Another thing that people might not know about is if a guy, a number assignments kind of go by the position. Certain positions have to wear certain numbers based on the rules of the game. And if you're a young guy coming in, you're probably just going to get assigned a number. If you're an older guy, maybe a veteran coming in, they bring you in, you have an opportunity to get the number that you played with, assuming it's not a retired number, assuming someone else doesn't already have it. And that's sometimes when you hear those stories about the negotiations between players and,
Right.
hey, I'll pay you for my number. And sometimes, those stories sometimes you hear them and they're quite ridiculous. And sometimes a guy just isn't too tied to a number. Hey, take the jersey. I don't care, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the interesting thing is if a guy comes in, gets assigned a jersey number he doesn't particularly care for, and a year or two in, he wants to change numbers. What some people might not know is he's responsible, especially if they're making jerseys, because everyone doesn't get jerseys made of themselves, right? For sale on
Right. Yeah.
sale. But if you are responsible to pay to have all those jerseys that already exist with the number you don't want anymore. You have to pay for those,
No way.
or they'll let you switch. Yeah, absolutely,
Well,
absolutely.
do you get them? I mean, so you're basically buying them. Do they
Well, if
give
you're
them to
buying them, I'm
you?
assuming you're getting
Yeah,
them. I
'cause
don't
then
know.
you could donate them, you could do something with them, but oh my
Yeah,
gosh, that's crazy.
yeah. And then even on the team level, like Houston, we talked a couple weeks ago about their new black uniforms. When teams change uniforms, and it's a little bit probably a little bit different now, just because everyone has one or two, at least one or two alternate jerseys nowadays, and teams go
Yeah.
to the throwbacks. But when you're changing uniforms, you have to, all that gets approved through the league, right? You can't just do your own thing, even though these are big corporate entities, the individual teams, but you still have to clear all that through the league because, again, they want a nice uniform, acceptable look, acceptable to them, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
always, you know, what's acceptable to one might not be to another. But all that gets cleared, and then the teams, go for it, and they have sometimes they'll have contests with the fans. Hey, and it's the illusion of choice. I like to say, right, where you know it's really an A/B test, right? Is what it is.
Yeah.
It's not. They're the fans aren't really creating anything from the ground up, but again, it gives the illusion that the fans are participating. They love that stuff, right?
Well,
So,
what's funny here is the creamsicle uniforms are really popular,
right,
which, I know back when they really wore them, they were not popular. It was like
right,
a big joke, the
right.
creamsicle, whatever. Well, this game on Sunday is one of the creamsicle games.
Oh, okay.
And I'm telling you, it's all you see. Like they even changed the giant flag at One Buck Place as the creamsicle flag. It's just so funny because it was really not popular when it was their actual uniform.
Right.
So it's become very, very popular. I like it. But it's kind of funny like that.
No, it's weird. I love the creamsicles, and I probably didn't when I was a kid watching them back in the day. But and again, that's something where the teams don't just decide a couple of days in advance of a game. Hey, this is what we're going to wear. That's reported to the league far in advance. Hey, on this day, this game, this is the uniform we're going to wear. And obviously, certain teams have their certain peccadillos about like Dallas. Typically, you don't catch them in their blue uniforms, and I'm not exactly sure what that goes. Some superstition, but I'm not sure what it goes back to. But it goes back quite a ways, right? Dallas usually wear, most teams wear dark colors at home, but some it's more of a practical thing. Miami, a couple other teams I know like to wear white at home because you put the other team in
The
dark
heat.
color and it's the
Yeah.
sun's beating them down the whole game, right?
Yeah.
Gives you a competitive advantage in a game where you're looking just for an inch of an advantage, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's
Let
that.
me so in terms of the not only the equipment, but just like the merch. Like, do you
Yes,
guys get the merch or do you, because I mean, I spend a fortune on Fanatics.
right. So, it's basically for us workout gear. If you're in good, there's certainly opportunities where you might go in and say, "Hey, I got X, Y, or Z coming up. Can I get a few T-shirts?" And if you're good, they're not even going to sweat you about paying for it. But at the
Right.
worst, they'll charge you the $20 or so per shirt. Like maybe you have some huge order. But at the start of each season, even going back to the off season, you get an allotment of sweatshirts, t-shirts, shorts, whatever the design for that year is, and then it changes from
Yeah.
year.
What about the sideline hats? Which, by the way, I am not wild about this year. I don't like the plaid, and I don't like that weird braid on the brim. Who comes up with that? But you guys
um,
get those sideline hats every year, like.
well, and that's more of because sometimes they change from game to game, and again, that's the great guys in the equipment room. handling all the logistics of all of that. Hey, here are the hats for this game. They often have the partnership with Susan G. Komen, and here are
Right.
the pink hats, here's the pink gear, here's this, and they always coordinate that stuff. And uh, and so and so yeah, so basically they coordinate it all. You get your allotment of gear, like I said, sweatshirts to practice in. Depending on East Coast, West Coast. If it's a cold weather place, maybe it changes the number of sweats. Like it all depends on where you are, obviously. But you
Yeah,
get
no
a ton of
sweatshirts
stuff.
here.
I had one of my buddies, Gerald Dixon, right, who was a linebacker that I played with for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, and Gerald always in my locker taking my sweatshirt because it was bigger, and he like where I'm like, Gerald, you have one of those of your own in your locker, right? And that was just our little back and forth that he was always in my locker room looking for clothes, but and so and typically offense wears white in terms of practice. Offense wears white. The defense will wear the color of the team for their practice jerseys. Quarterbacks typically wear a red jersey, and red jerseys have always been hands off. You can't touch them.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
sometimes that'll be changed, like a team like the Chiefs, where their color scheme is red and white, where maybe, I'm not sure if this applies to him, but maybe Patrick Mahomes wears a color other than maybe like a black or something like that. But you see it a lot at the college level too, right? Where
Right.
quarterback won't wear it, but everyone knows whatever color that quarterback is wearing, he's off limits. You get to him, you slow up. Just even around, there's like a halo around him because you don't even want to pull up too close and accidentally fall into him, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of the things. But yeah, so it's not merch per se, I think, as you think about it, but we do get a ton of t-shirts, ton of sweatshirts, whatever you can think of, hats, you get it over the course of the season, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Um,
pretty cool. I mean, I will say that the Buck store has awesome merch, and I just have to stay out of there because I always feel like I need a new hat. I have like, I don't know, 10 Bucks hats. Like, why do I need those?
well,
Why do I
some
need
of that
those?
some of that stuff probably wouldn't be in the locker room just because a lot of it, it's all numbered for the most part, right? So you know whose stuff is what, and then and even the shoes, right? So the way shoes work. And I think they've opened it up to a few more companies now. But back in the day when I was playing, it was pretty much Reebok and Nike were the two big ones that were going. And so each of those had about 10 to 15 guys on each team that had contracts with them. And
Right.
and so they provide your shoes, your gloves, and of course you get some merch from them. And then the cool part about who with that is when you like make it to a Super Bowl, and then you just get a ton of merch from whatever shoe company you happen to be with. And then of course there's levels to it, right? There's guys on the teams who maybe are with a Nike and they're getting paid money to wear Nike, whereas me, I was an offensive lineman who gave a damn. I just got free merch, right? And you
But
have.
didn't you wear the wrong gloves one time?
Well, I did, and so my first 2 years I wore Reebok, and then my third year and the rest of my career I switched to Nike. And so what happens is that's funny you brought that up. And so it was my first year with Nike, but I really liked the Reebok gloves that I wore. The padding was in a specific place that I liked a little bit better. And so what I did was I just taped it up where there was none of the Reebok logos were showing, but I was wearing the Reebok gloves. Well, Monday there's a note in my locker, and I'm thinking to myself, I didn't even get flagged. Like, what could I possibly be getting fined for? Well, it was a warning letter from Nike saying, hey, we noticed that you weren't wearing the Nike gloves, and don't let it happen again. Basically, is what they
Boy,
said.
those letters come quick.
Oh yeah, overnight. So sure, so yeah, and I'm sure it's the whoever handles each, because the people you dealt with handled like multiple teams. So they handled us, the Cardinals, probably the Bay Area teams, and it's probably their job to look at each player. Hey, what are they wearing, right? And so I
Right.
remember Natron was a bit because spatting. So spatting, remember spats from like the 40s, the gangsters in the 40s wear the spats on
Yes.
their shoes. Well, so
Yes.
spatting in football is just basically a tape job on the outside of your shoe, right? And so a
Okay.
lot of guys like to do it for the aesthetic. Some guys like to do it because it feels like it gives them their ankles more support. But Nike wouldn't let guys do it or didn't were frowned upon it because they wanted that Nike logo to show. So I just remember Natron Means before every game always getting the Nike that symbol drawn onto his spat, so he'd have it.
You know who else wore spats?
Who's that?
Babar the elephant.
Is that right?
That is correct.
I don't remember that.
Take a look. So who drew the Nike logo on for him?
Oh, one of the trainers who taped them. Yeah.
Was he good at it?
Yeah. It was pretty good. It was pretty good.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Pretty lucky.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So has it ever happened in your career where you traveled and somebody didn't have something and even the equipment guys didn't even have it? Like,
No.
did that ever happen?
No.
Oh, wow. That's pretty impressive.
My buddy Roman Fortin used to always like the young guys, you're packing up for that first road trip. And so maybe we're playing on turf. And he'd always tell them, "Oh, don't forget your 7-inch cleats, right?" And because there's different length cleats and all that stuff. Well, cleats you wear on grass, right?
Right.
Whereas turfs you wear on field turf shoes. He'd always tell them something opposite. And you can see him just like, "Oh no!" But I thought we were going to such like just trying their circuits. But even if they thought he was being serious and Pat. Trust me, the equipment room would have them all set because they've got extras of everything. And like I said, like the logistical nightmare of getting all that stuff. Like, so that's the other thing. We land on Sunday night, if it's a close or Monday morning, depending on how far away we play. Well, we're jumping in our cars as quick as we can, getting out of there, going home. They're waiting for the plane to get unpacked, and then they're taking off, waiting for the truck to get loaded, go back to the facility, unpack it, and then they got to unpack all that stuff. It's not like it just sits there waiting for the next next away game. They unpack it all, put it all in its place, and then they go home, right? So,
well, that's so funny that you said that because I was going to ask you that. Because your days are so long as a player, they've got to be. I mean, how many hours a day are those equipment guys working on game day?
It's a sacrifice.
24 hours.
Yeah, it's a sacrifice.
Yeah. So I do hope they're paid well.
So we, especially we would go back east and you'd get in on Friday. The Chargers thing was typically we'd land on Friday, try to get a little bit acclimated to the time change. And so they build in some time where if you had family in town or just wanted to see the city a little bit, have a bite to eat, we definitely have curfew that night, but they work in a little bit of time. Not them. We land, again, they're waiting for everything to get unloaded, and they're headed straight to the stadium to unpack for game day, right? We're going to have a walkthrough at the stadium on Saturday. We're going to be ready for that, and then Sunday. So they're the hardest working men, and don't always get the credit they deserve.
So they're probably, I feel like this could be a job for me. Is there anyone who travels with the team who advises the players on skincare and what should be packed in their overnight bags for skincare or, even just health and beauty in general?
Now things have changed, but to my recollection, no, that's left to the individual players.
Well, my friend Sean Murphy Bunting, who I've told you about before, he's with Arizona now. I will tell you that he is really on it. He's on his skincare regime. He loves, and I believe still loves, Augustinus Bader, which I am the one who got him hooked on. Me and Michelle, our esthetician. And he does not travel without a good skincare regimen. So I must give credit to Sean Murphy Bunting for caring for his skin properly at home and on the road.
Well, it's odd that you say that because just this year, I finally decided, you know what, I'm going to start taking much better care of my skin, actually buy some products and not just use soap and water and,
Good.
whatever body
Good.
lotion I have available, right? So,
On your face?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
No. Oh my God, Vaughn. Okay, so you're not doing that anymore.
No, 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 no.
Okay.
No,
Not
no.
body lotion on your face.
No, 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 no. I'm
Okay,
not.
because that's just
So
not good.
and so I went on Amazon and I saw some because I was watching a bunch of YouTubes and there's this one brand that everyone has a deal with and everyone kept pushing. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to get that. And so I came across one and it's got the face lotion. It's got the scrub for your face. It's got the because my thing is I get really bad bags when I don't get enough sleep, and you can really and it's amazing how much of a difference it makes. When I get sleep, it's like there's nothing, and then if I don't get enough sleep, it's like oh god, what's going? So it's got stuff for the eyes and okay, I'm not
What
gonna
brand
lie to
is
you.
it? Do you know? Why didn't you
Yeah, I
ask
gotta. You
me?
know what? I'll send it to you offline. But I gotta tell you. I don't use it every day, but I definitely use it several times a week. So I'm better off than I was a year ago this time.
Did
And
you use it last week? Did you use it last week before we podcasted?
I did.
Because I'm going to tell you, I actually was going to text you when I was watching it. You looked great last week. You did, you did not look tired. You looked great. And so whatever it is, I'd like to know. Because that makes me happy. You know, I am a
Okay, well,
proponent of
thank
good
you.
skincare, and I do love Augustinus Bader, so I'm all about that for Sean and
Okay,
myself and others. But whatever it is you have discovered, I feel it's good.
okay. Well, Augustine. Okay, I'll remember that for when I have to re up.
But yeah, if if any team is out there listening and they want a personal skincare consultant or product consultant for beauty or masculine
Right.
beauty, I don't know what you would call it, I'm available. I think it would be fun. Well, this is very interesting. I definitely want to watch more for those equipment guys, like on the side. I mean, you see them sometimes like screwing in a cleat or,
Yeah.
whatever they're doing. It is pretty amazing what they have to be in charge of and all the stuff they have to know.
Yes. Yeah. And one thing I forgot to mention, I wanted to mention about the customization piece is some of those like with the pads or helmets, some of the customization comes from a lot of that stuff has air bladders, and so some of it comes from that. But then there is the part of it where a lot of these places have sewing rooms right in the locker,
Wow.
in the equipment room where they take care of all that stuff. Right? Hey, nip like it's tighten the sleeve here. I want this let out. Yada yada. And you got 50 plus guys all want something done. It's the rare guy who just doesn't want anything done, right? And typically it's us offensive linemen. It's just like, you know what, just give me something with my number and let me go out and do what I need to do, right? So yeah,
That's
it's
amazing.
they're very invaluable and part of the wheel that goes around and you couldn't really get it done without them.
It really is amazing when you think about how many people work for these teams. And, we had an alterations department at Neiman Marcus and Saks Fifth Avenue that, if you're buying an expensive suit, it needs to fit. You need to have
Yes.
it tailored and fit properly. But the same thing is happening in the locker room. I
Oh
love
yeah.
it. That's amazing. Well,
Definitely.
cool. Shall we move on to football frenzy?
Sure.
Okay. So, my fashion fave this week, I really didn't see a lot of fashion out there. Some weeks you see more than others, But I will say that this week I noticed Terry McLaurin from the Commanders, and he had on, I'm not normally a head to toe matchy matchy person,
Mhm.
but he had on a head to toe rude sweater and short set, and it looked great. I loved the pattern. It was like an army green color. He had a cap on as well. He really looked great. So I'm sure he has some sort of deal with Rude because it was screaming that brand. But I really liked it a lot, and plus that's my favorite color. Like green, green is my favorite color. So I loved it. I thought it was fun. I didn't see too much else out there that really struck me this week in terms of fashion. But I think my other favorite thing that I experienced this week, on Sunday I was driving back from Atlanta, so I wasn't able to watch a lot of football. But luckily, I was able to listen to the majority of the Vikings and Lions game on
Yeah.
the radio. And I knew I would get something on the radio at some point, but I didn't know I'd be able to really hear the majority of the game because I thought I'd lose it at some point. And I forgot how fun it is to listen to a football game on the radio. It's really fun. And it's always it was a hometown announcer. It was the Vikings announcers that I was listening to. And of course it didn't work out for them in the end, but they get super excited and, but it was an exciting game as we had discussed it probably would be. But I enjoyed listening to it rather than actually watching it. And then when I got home and saw some of the highlights, I'm like, oh, that's what that looked like. But wow, Detroit, woo! And who's the only team that's beaten Detroit so far?
The
Hello,
Bucks.
Buccaneers.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
What
Yeah.
what was your favorite this week?
Unfortunately for you, my favorite was the Ravens, and not so much because they won this week. I think it was because how they won. It really looks like the addition of Derrick Henry is
Yes.
paying huge dividends, and it's changing um, what they're able to do. Right, you can't play a seven-man box, meaning have your four down linemen and three linebackers, and think only have those guys to defend the run and think you're going to hold up against them. You've got to get that eighth guy down into the box, meaning bringing the safety into close to the line of scrimmage to protect
Mm-hmm.
against the run. And Lamar Jackson is really showing that when you do that, he's going to make you pay for it. I don't know how many touchdown passes he had the other night, but he looked
5.
good.
It
Yeah,
was
well,
5.
right. And so he looks good, and he looks like he's really able to exploit what the defense is doing. And they complement each other because when they start pulling back to defend what Lamar Jackson can do with his arm, then either himself or Derrick Henry are again going to be able to exploit everything on the ground. There's no secret what they're going to do. They're going to feed Derrick Henry, although he only had 15 carries the other day, but that's all he needed. He had 15 carries for 170 yards. So um, I don't know why I care because I'm not a Baltimore fan. I'm not even a Lamar fan, other than I just remember when he came out and Bill Polian said, yeah, he should move to, I think, wide receiver or running back.
Yeah.
He's just
Yeah.
like, no, I played quarterback my whole life. This is what I am. And I'm rooting for him. And
Yeah.
so it just looks like they're the cream of the crop in the AFC, even though I think obviously the Chiefs the Chiefs are undefeated. So, but I think if they meet again in the playoffs, it's looking like it could be, there's a lot of work to do, but it's looking like things might go his way this time.
I agree with you. And um unless they are playing either the Bucks or the Raiders, I do root for the Ravens. I like them. I've always liked them. I actually have a funny story about my brother-in-law Wayne is a huge Patriot fan, like an obnoxious Patriot fan because he's from Boston. So I'll give it to him. I can appreciate it. But we went to visit them one time, and the Ravens were going to be playing the Patriots. It was a playoff game, And we had watched the first playoff game with them. And then I had ordered Ravens shirts for myself, James, and Elizabeth. And we quietly went downstairs and we all put on our Baltimore Ravens shirts. And we came back up to the TV room. And he all of a sudden looked at us and he's like, what? What? And he calls his wife Shirley. He's like, "Babe, get the jersey for the dog." Like he was so upset. But I like the Ravens. We'll move on. We can go ahead and move into frustrations now, because that is my frustration. We started that game. I texted you. I'm like, Bucks looking so good. And that, our first drive, we never score a touchdown on the first drive. So that was amazing. Like really looking good. And sacked Lamar twice on the first defensive, whatever you call it. And I felt really good about it. And then all of a sudden, like everything went wrong. It started with the interceptions. Like, again, I think Baker needs to get his eyes checked just to make sure he's not colorblind, because that's been a little concerning the past 2 weeks. But then what I really didn't like, and what I would be curious about your take, the defense, which Todd Bowles is a defensive guru. There's no question. But we were blitzing every time. Mm-hmm. They adjusted to that, and we're just leaving these tight ends and receivers wide open down the middle of the field, which happened when we played Atlanta last time too. So what's the thought process there? Because that's not working. Like, we can't just leave these opportunities down the middle. I mean, Lamar can get anything anywhere, clearly, and I'm very happy for him that he's becoming. People are actually recognizing his passing ability, which is amazing. He's not just a runner, and he threw he threw for 5 touchdowns. But what's the deal with the frustrating defense thing? What's that?
Well,
what is that?
Anytime you're sending the blitz, you're trying to, with your disguise your looks, confuse the quarterback, get him to move from where he wants to set up and throw the ball, and say, hey, we're going to throw pressure in his face and see if he can hold up to it, which, like you said, they were adjusting. They were picking him up. He was moving, throwing on the run. And I know on one of the touchdowns, Mark Andrews, the tight end, has always been his security blanket. Like, he gets a ton of catches. He's always looking for him. And I remember the commentators talked about how the defense, they blitzed and they expected him to run up the seam, and they were right where traditionally you wanted to be to cover it. Well, he just stopped and turned around and he put it on him, right? So that's like a game within a game. Hey, here's what we like to do. Here's how they typically have covered that. Here's what we're going to do to counter what they're going to try to counter us with, right? Like, so it's that game within the game. Hey, here's a little wrinkle. It's what we do, but there's a little wrinkle to it that's going to change it up, give us an advantage, right?
Well, it was horribly frustrating. And of course, the other horribly frustrating and very sad part were the injuries. Mike Evans was battling his hamstring, and shout out to Mike for 100 touchdowns. I mean, the guy's amazing. He's going to be out now until the week after the bye. And then, of course, what happened to Chris Godwin, and that was awful. That was awful. And I will not lie, I shed a few tears that night, just because he's such a great guy. He plays with such heart. He's battled these injuries. And I feel like that just shouldn't have happened. And I know there's people who are criticizing Todd Bowles for leaving him in the game. I am certain, and you and I have talked about this before, I am certain Chris Godwin wanted to be in the game.
Play. Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Look, there's something to be said for sometimes where we need to be saved from ourselves. But, at that position especially, if a guy wants to be in there, you're not going to tell him no, right?
Yeah. Well, it's a shame now for us.
Yeah.
So do you think we should try to get Cooper Kupp?
Well, I was thinking that maybe they were going to go for DeAndre Hopkins, but,
that's already been done.
Yeah, right. Right, exactly. And
Yeah,
apparently they wanted to get Cooper Cup, but just couldn't agree on the price. So yeah, I think they probably the way their season is going. I mean, they're 4-3 now, but it looked like hey, they were going to compete for one of those postseason spots. So
for sure.
I would say yeah, look, see who else is out there who's willing to work with you and try to get at least one solid guy who can
Yeah,
so you just because when you lose two guys like that for a lengthy amount of time, it can just derail your whole offense, right? I mean,
yeah.
there's always something to be said for next man up, but those are two difference makers, and so yeah, I think they have to be active, especially the way the season. Look, there's no shame in losing to a very good. I think it'll be proven out at the end
We
of the year.
knew that we
Very
knew
good
that
rate,
would be,
right?
yeah, that was going to
So
be one of the hardest games all year,
right, and so
for
you're
sure.
4-3, but like we had a tough loss, and there's something to play for. So I don't think they should just sit, where they're at, unless there's some stud in their system who we don't know about, who's just going to come set the world on fire, and it's just the fact that he's behind Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, right?
I
So
think we do have three good guys. I mean, we've got Shepard, we've got McMichael, we have Palmer. But and then, the whole running game that we actually seem to have now. And Rashad White is a great little receiver, you know. We could probably make it work. But yeah. So that was my big frustration, and it was painful and sad, and we don't seem to do well on nationally televised games. I'll just say that. But what was your frustration?
mine is kind of wrapped up into my frustration and my flop. Easy to pick on them, but the Brown situation
Oh
just
my god. Oh my god.
the frustration because I think we talked about last week or the week before about like why don't they bench him at this point because it seems like it's beyond him. And again, I said I thought that maybe was coming from the owner. Like the owner's like, look, we got to try to get the value out of this contract. And so that's part of the frustration is that there's so many other things going on off the field that were affecting everything. And I know how it feels to be in those lockers when decisions are being made. But it's like, look, I don't have next year. I'm in my 10th, ninth, 8th year. I don't know. This could be over tomorrow. I don't have till next year to wait as kind of retool your grand scheme. I need to make this happen now. I don't because football's too hard of a game Monday through Saturday not to maximize every opportunity, right? So
Yeah.
that's the frustration and just the flop, just in that he tears his Achilles. I don't know what their game plan is after they let Joe Flacco go, who it would have been nice to have him, right? And
Yeah. Well, I
I think
guess Jameis is starting on Sunday.
and I think if Joe Flacco was there, they would have made the decision sooner. But again, they're trying to make him feel better about his situation where he's not looking over his shoulder because Flacco, he's not what he was, but he's capable, right? And so, hey,
Yeah.
we're going to move him just so he doesn't have that pressure. And so it's just a disaster of it. And the thing is, and here's why it's a flop for me is just because in a system designed for the worst teams to not be the worst teams year over year, they're managing to screw it up royally, right? And so,
For sure.
this that money is guaranteed. So there's never going to be a time where that money comes off the books in the short term where they can make any difference. So they're probably set up to be one of the worst teams for the foreseeable future, right? So it's
Well,
just a
there's
mess.
a lot of talk about trading Miles Garrett to the Bears. That would be something, right? Because he's going to want out of there.
Well, and I think because you got to do something to get some quality players back, right? And you're never
Yeah.
going to get the exact value you should get for a Miles Garrett, but yeah, I'm sure he doesn't. He's toiling away and not really having an opportunity to win on a high level
Yep.
there. So yeah, it's just a mess.
Well, I'm going to tell you my flop. I'm sorry to say this, but I hate football night in America now. It is the worst. And I love Rodney and Dungy, so take them out of it.
Yeah.
But That's part of the reason I hate it, is because they've relegated them to the sidelines. You don't see enough of them. It is the worst football show on TV. It used to be the one that you watched in between the second game and the night game and got caught up on all the highlights. They hardly show highlights anymore. This is not nice. Forgive me, because I try to be nice. Jason Garrett's freaky smile disturbs me. And he's always smiling, like it's weird. And I don't like the chemistry amongst these people. And I am not going to watch it anymore. I'm going to flip in between the games to NFL Network because I think it is horrible. And I love Rodney and I love Dungy, but the rest of that show is a flop.
Well, here's the thing I think they're missing from that dynamic as well, because Coach is so reserved and so put together and so calm about everything. And Rodney's the exact opposite of all that, right? And so I used to enjoy that back and forth.
Yes.
And Rodney's losing his hair talking about how could the DB do that? And Coach Dungy's like, I understand what you're saying, Rodney, but let me slow it down, right? You know what I'm saying? That yin and yang between the two of them. I think it was a terrible decision taking them out of the studio. Like I haven't watched in so long. And of course, I'm a homer because Rodney's one of my good friends. But just I think looking back objectively, it's not as good.
No, it's horrible. Terrible. And of course, sucks, except for Rodney and Dungy. Except for Rodney and Dungy.
Well, yes. Okay. Rams, yeah.
At time. So there's a game tonight. I don't know how good it's going to be. Minnesota and the Rams. You know, it's week, and I would look forward to learning about your new skincare.
Yes. I will let you know.
And Ashton, please do not just take your own stitches out. I have some concerns about that. And otherwise, everyone, thank you so much for watching or listening to But First Football. And please give us a like, a follow, a subscribe, and all those things that you do for podcasts that you love. So thank you and goodbye.
See you. Bye.